And they like to army crawl in sometimes,
Because they
thinking
think
that
they're
they're
under the
hidden.
camera. Mm,
They are not.
yeah.
My favorite.
My office is set up opposite where obviously my back is to the wall. And so my kids come in front of me or to my window to my right, and they like to do funny things and try to distract me from what I'm supposed to
Yeah.
be doing.
I've got the like from my window to the side. Sometimes it's the front path, and they'll
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
you. I would do it to them though, so I guess it's fair game.
Probably where they learned it from us, right?
Weird though.
Weird.
Kind of thing.
Well, it's 2 o'clock and we like to start on time so that we can try to help people end on time. We're always really grateful that people are taking time out of their day to come and be with us. And I'm really excited to have you on the webinar with us today, Jenny. So I'm going to screen share. I'll introduce us a little bit. I'll introduce a little bit about ACT and the BPA since not everybody who joins us knows exactly who we are. And then we'll jump right into content. So let me get my slides up here. Ta-da! There we are. All right. Well, we are going to be talking today about building a culture that sticks. And I'm really excited that my co-host is our director of people and culture.
And weird how that worked out.
Barrett was going to be joining us today. So if you saw some early promo, you probably saw Barrett, and he had another obligation. So I'm like, who better to talk about culture than our director of people and culture
I
and lead
know.
practice coach, Jenny?
We get to spend an hour talking about the thing that fills my heart with so much joy, and it is creating a culture and a space in which you are happy and your team thrives. And it's something that sticks when you're intentional about it, and we're going to talk about how to make that happen today.
I'm so excited because I love culture as well, and I'm pretty darn passionate about it. I don't know that I've met very many people that are more passionate about it than me, but if there were, it's you. So
Yeah.
I'm glad to have you here with me.
It's awesome.
Well, before we jump into the content, I do just want to share with everyone because we're really trying to spread the word. And if you're not in there yet, or you have friends who aren't in there yet, we just want to talk for just a minute about what we do. And we just shared with you that we love culture. We love helping teams build a healthy culture, build an aligned, smart, and healthy practice. And being helpful is one of our most favorite things to be. And so we have a space where we do that universally, and that's our Best Practices Association. And we've developed it in a way that it really can suit everyone. So that first level tier of the Best Practices Association, which is our online community that supports all of the things that we talk about, that houses these events and event recordings and all the resources that we mentioned, as well as role specific forums and study clubs, is our BPA. And the very basic level is that you can come in and really just do things on your own. You can become a premium member and dig around in our resources and our event recordings and our forums and chat with other community members and just see how far you can take your practice on your own with the support of this community. And we have another level if you feel like you need a little more help than that and you want to be part of something more. You can join our To the Top Study Club that exists right there within the BPA. And that's where you can really join a group of like minded dentists and business owners who are on the same journey that you're on and feel like you have a bit more accountability and support of a group to help you on your way. And if you decide that's still not enough, you can join our one on one pro coaching experience with lead practice coaches, just like myself and Jenny. And we're happy to work with new teams and help you on your journey to being aligned, smart, and healthy so you can have a better practice and a better life. So if you haven't reached out to the BPA yet, there's a couple easy ways to do it. Number one, you can have it on your desktop. Actually, they just released a desktop app. I don't have that on here today, but you can just log in through your browser at join.actdental.com. If you don't have an account yet, really super easy to set one up. If you do, hop in and everything we talk about today will be there for you. And there's also a QR code here if you want to do it that way. The other option is you can have it on your phone. So you can just go to your app store and search Best Practices Association. You'll see the logo that you see here on your screen and just join. Add it to your phone. You can join for free. You won't have access to as many tools and resources, but you will get to be a part of all these events and event recordings and see the library that we have there. And if you want to take it further, it's super easy to upgrade. So we hope that you join us in the BPA.
Part of culture is community. So we love community and it supports amazing culture. So I really hope you guys all take the opportunity to be a part of that.
Yeah, our goal is that our ACT culture, which everyone tells us they really enjoy, feeds over into that community. Like we're all in there all the time. The coaches are in there, Kirk's in there, Barrett's in there. So we are taking our culture and we're putting it right in that online community because we want to be with you guys even more if we can be too. So, when you're thinking about your practice culture, I love Barrett always says you have one, whether you're creating it or not. So your practice culture determines whether you and your team love coming to work or dread it. And if your culture isn't intentional, I guarantee you it's costing you in team morale and productivity and patient experience. And you either have that practice that you jump out of your car and you're really excited to walk through the door, or you have that practice where you sit in your car for just a few more minutes because as soon as you go in there, you know what you're walking into. And you can be intentional in creating the culture that you want for your practice. It's all up to you. And that's part of the beauty of entrepreneurship and owning your own practice. So before we get into some of the actual examples of how culture shows up, Jenny, I'd love for you to just layer on a little bit to just why is this conversation about culture so important to designing your practice?
I think culture and core values, which we're going to talk about, it's kind of become this buzzword and this cool thing to have a cool culture. And it's not just that. Having a culture that you want to spend time in that supports growth, that helps the team engage in a positive way is the biggest differentiator that you can have. An amazing culture is the thing that creates an amazing team. We learn time and time again that when we are an intentional team, um, we have intentional effort to creating a positive culture that supports growth. We start to see things happen that we didn't even know could come to life.
Mm.
And it is so true that you have one no matter what. You it exists. Your culture exists, and if you aren't creating it and driving it, it is driving you. So sit in the driver's seat and be the one that's in control of how you spend your days.
Oh, I love that image of being in the driver's seat and your culture is strapped in the car seat back there. And you're like, you're telling it where we're going today and you better behave when we get there.
That's right. Strap in, you're along for the ride. I'm
That's
in the
right.
back seat wondering where we're going. We're taking a left when I say take a left.
Yes, I love it. And you mentioned another thing that is going to come up in part of this, which will be one of these first points we talk about, which is the team. And a team that fits what you want your culture to be, if it's a very obvious culture, if you really have differentiated yourself in that way, you're going to draw people who fit that culture to your team. And this summer, we're going to be talking a lot about building a foundational team and building leadership. At our To the Top Study Club session. So in July, we have two sessions, and you're going to actually be presenting with
Yeah,
me
I'm
this
excited.
summer too. And one of the things we're going to be talking about and introducing is this concept of a unique employment proposition. And when you can say we're a place that people really are seeking out to work for because we have this culture that is palpable. So, a couple of reasons why this is so important to take it even to another layer and make it applicable to maybe things you've experienced in your practice is looking at the flip side, which is challenges. So,
Mhm.
what kind of challenges in your practice does culture help solve? And one of those is disengaged or unmotivated team members. So we hear this a lot as coaches. Team members who just do the bare minimum, they lack a bit of initiative, they don't take ownership. Sometimes it's like, you man, we care so much more than they do. And you always will because you own the practice and they don't. However, you can really get a lot of commitment and belonging and buy in from your team through culture. So, a lot of times, this disengagement shows up and we'll throw a couple of examples on each of these slides just so you can go like, yep, I get it. That's me. So For example, you have a hygienist who walks the patient up time and time again with no handoff, even though we have a system for it and we've talked about it. They don't mention treatment recommendations that were brought up in the room to the admin team. They're really showing no ownership of the patient experience, no concern for practice growth by way of making sure we've shared that next treatment option with the administrative team. And we are just frustrated because we're doing a crown in the room right across the hall, and we can hear that no exchange is happening between the hygienist and the administrative team member. They just feel disengaged. And the reality is that's generally a result of our culture.
Mhm.
And so when we have a strong culture in place, and we're going to talk a little bit about how you build that and keep it there so that it sticks and that it shows up every day, you can start to turn some challenges like this around. You can start to have team members who truly are engaged, who show up motivated and wanting to fulfill those expectations of the practice.
Yeah. You use that word feel it, and that is the thing about culture. It's a palpable thing that you feel. Your patients feel it and your team members feel it. And when I walk through the doors feeling excited, knowing that I'm going to have a day that I'm running, but I'm excited to be there taking care of patients, taking care of my team, and know that I have support around me, which comes from this intentional culture, you show up different.
Mhm. Absolutely. Which takes us right to the next point, which is when you don't have that, you tend to have higher levels of turnover and toxicity. So, negative attitudes, gossip, constant staffing changes, it can disrupt team morale for sure. And
Mhm.
it can disrupt patient care. Like our patients notice when those things are happening. So, for example, if you've ever had a situation in your practice where patients frequently notice staffing changes, they say things like, "Man, I see somebody new every time I come in," or "What happened to Sally?" Showing that high turnover can really be damaging to continuity of care and results in a lack of patient confidence. Even patients, after a while, will start wondering, like, what exactly goes on behind the scenes here if they can't keep team members in this practice. And so the culture piece can really help to fix and turn around this same concept of turnover and toxicity. It really fits in with that former challenge pretty well.
Mhm.
And then when we're looking at the other side of it, which is as business owners, if we're noticing these things, we have to really get aligned around what's important in our practice and hold people accountable to it. And without a culture that is about alignment and accountability, team members don't really share the same vision. Sometimes they don't even know if there is a vision. Certainly, it leads to inconsistencies with our systems. So that will lead to internal frustrations. And then also, again, with patient care. If it's gotten to the point where our culture is so damaged or negative that it's impacting patient care, it's gone beyond our own team engagement. It's a little harder to turn around, but it's not impossible.
Yeah.
So, an example of how this shows up, one doctor recommends comprehensive care that's aligned with the practice's written down philosophy that maybe we're just not all aligned on or don't even know exists, while the other one is downplaying or softening the blow to keep patients happy or make conversations a little more comfortable. And this shows a misalignment in treatment philosophy, perhaps even in vision, that's going to erode trust and it's going to confuse your team members for sure. If you have an assistant or a hygienist that works with both of these providers, that can cause friction or malalignment. So, culture is the answer to fixing all of these problems.
Yeah.
You have anything to layer on there, Jenny?
I think one of the things that I oftentimes hear, especially when I'm starting to coach and we're talking about culture, is that it feels fluffy.
Oh,
It
yeah.
feels unimportant, and it feels light. And I want everyone to hear and to remind you that culture has rules. There are rules to culture, and there are behaviors to culture that create predictability. So it's not something that's always light and fun. It does
Mhm.
create that, but really, culture creates a safe space and it creates this predictability, this efficiency, this consistency in which people can be their best because they're not wondering, what am I going to expect today? What's going to show up today? It's it's that level of confidence and consistency that allows everyone on your team to perform at their best. So it's not just the light fun playing, it's also the rules and the systems and the clarity that we create that really drives the team to success.
I love that you bring that up because you are so right. A lot of people think of it as soft or they immediately picture what we see Google and
Our act
ping
videos.
pong
Yeah.
tables in the, in the middle of your cubicles. Like that's not what we mean when we're talking about culture. I mean, sure, for that particular organization, that's a part of their culture, obviously, but culture is unique to every single practice. I know I have a team who has a core value that's built around having fun because they're just super lighthearted, fun people. And I have another team that doesn't have that mixed in, and they're way more about high performance. And then you find the people that fit your energy, your vibe, the culture that you're trying to build. And I love that you brought up the fact that it breeds predictability. It's kind of like when you worry about what mood is someone going to be in today. When you walk in the door and you're like, oh, what mood is so and so in? No, it's like the mood of the office is predictable. We know
Yes.
that these are the behaviors that happen here. This is how we feel when we're here. This is what support looks like when we're here. And it's very predictable.
And it's unrealistic to think that everyone is going to show up every day in the best mood ever. That's not life. And when you have a positive culture in which people feel comfortable and confident to be themselves because they know the rules, they know the boundaries, they know the behaviors, they can walk in and say, Miranda, I've only got 50 today. I need you to match my 50 so I can get to 100. And that's where the magic in culture happens because there's this trust
Yes.
in each other.
Yeah. Trust is it. We talk a lot about above the line, below the line. And once you have that language, you can really lean into the support of the people on your team who you can have that vulnerable based trust with and say, like, I'm just right there. I'm just teetering below the line and I'm going to get there. Let's support one another. Let's take us where we need to go. So let's talk a little bit, dig in a little bit more to culture. And then core values is where we're going to lean in a bit today because that's the base and such a strong part of culture. But culture is the number one competitive advantage in business, really, and families. So I know you have really strong family values, as do I. I've shared on many podcasts and webinars. I have a core value of family first. Whenever we make a decision, we have to say, how does it impact our family? We have a core value that's know your truth. You can't let anybody else take that away from you. If you know who you are, you can stand tall in that. And we talk about being kind and helpful. And it's always possible to be kind and helpful. And you can carry things like this over. And you have a culture in your own house and in your own family. I lived with my parents for 8 months while we were building our
Both
house.
did.
We both did.
Yes.
And there's something to be said about like the culture of your home,
Mhm.
and living in someone else's house for 8 months really helps you to recognize like there is a different culture, even in the home I grew up in with the people I grew up with, than the culture that we've created in our own home.
And it's
So,
okay for them to be different.
yeah.
And I just want to bridge those really quick in that when the culture in your practice, the place where you spend 30 to 50% of your waking hours is supporting positive life balance, you can show up in an amazing way in the culture in your home. Because if you leave drained because your culture is driving you, it's going to be harder for you to show up in the way that you want to when you walk out the doors of the practice and into the doors of your home.
Yeah, not only are you going to be sitting in the parking lot at work, kind of dreading going in, you also have to sit in your driveway for about 3 minutes before you go in the house so that you can decompress and reset yourself for another evening at home. Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
All right. So, core values plus results is really what culture shows up as. So, core values being those values and beliefs and philosophies that we stand behind and support in the practice, in addition to the attitudes and behaviors that show up and that we engage in, the results that happen, what's actually happening. That is what comprises our culture. So, let's talk about core values a little bit. And I feel like, we talk about core values a lot, but every time we talk about them, there's some new little piece or perspective that comes into play. And I'm so glad to have you here to offer even more new perspective. So, core values are ultimately inherent guiding principles that your practice navigates. They are the core beliefs or values in which all decisions are filtered through. And I know you like to say they're like another person sitting in.
I must have been like, it's not me, it's core values.
Yeah, makes it a little easier. Well, this is kind of cool statistic, but I'm not surprised at all. So, via this economic research study, 98%, almost 100, almost literally everyone of employees said that they wouldn't work for a company whose values didn't align with theirs. And that just goes to show when we go back to talking about attracting people that fit our culture and that unique employment proposition, when we can really have a culture and values that are obvious and that show up, we're going to have more and more of the right people in our practice. So, let's talk a little bit about why core values are important. So, number one is just alignment with purpose. So, core values are really what anchor or tether our practice to our core purpose. We talk a lot about why. And Simon Sinek, one of our favorite people, has a great book about Start with Why. And so the concept here is, why do you get up and do what you do every single day? So when we're working with coaching clients, that's one of the things early on that we help them figure out is, what is your true core purpose? What is your true north that says that this fulfills me and this is why I do what I do? And then having these core values that help to speak to, they tie us and tether us and anchor us to that purpose. And they're going to help for us to be able to fulfill that purpose on any given day. These defined values help create cohesion and
Mhm.
alignment with our team towards that purpose. And it really helps us to function as a whole versus as individuals, just kind of showing up and like taking aim and throwing darts at that purpose.
Yeah.
The next piece is around accountability. And we spoke to this a little bit in the beginning when we were saying, our team members have to have something to be accountable to. And you mentioned it around predictability. We know how we show up, we know how we behave here. Defined values really empower the team, and they create a framework, a structure, the rules, as you put it, for accountability. Patrick Lencioni, who we love, he's written a couple of really amazing books that you and I both support, The Advantage and Working Genius, which we're talking about this summer at TTT. He talks about core values giving employees clear behavioral expectations. And when they're properly integrated, you can really foster a great deal of engagement and ownership. When people know what's expected of them and they're able to get these small wins through the core values, they're going to build more and more confidence, more connection and sense of belonging to who we are and what we do. And in turn, they're going to own their role. So when we go back to that phrase I mentioned that coaching clients bring up often, we see it in Facebook communities everywhere else in the dental world of like, my team just doesn't own this like I do. They just don't believe in it like I do. The bottom line is, they're not tethered, they're not connected to the purpose or the values or who we are. And when we can create that connection and that sense of belonging, they're going to own it.
We talk a lot about growing leaders, and leadership is so important for you and me and our entire organization. Kirk often says the mark of a true leader is growing other leaders. I see core values as such an integral tool into how you grow leaders. And when like it helps me own my role, it helps me own my behaviors, and with confidence